Come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Tennessee Holler. I am Justin with the Tennessee Holler. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. This is our first live where we're now streaming live to Instagram. So shout out to everybody who's joining on Instagram. We do this every once in a while, so make sure you follow the Holler and follow all the Hollers all throughout the state. Thanks to your support, we have 10 Hollers hollering all throughout the state. Your small dollar monthly donations make that possible. Also, if you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld. If you're buying a home, Elisa Parker. And if you need some jewelry, AJ Martin is who you should do it through. All right, so join us, share this. Wanted to jump on here and check in with everybody and also talk to you about an article that was posted by our friends at the Tennessee Lookout today, who also do good work. You should definitely check them out. They wrote an article about a situation among the Democrats, Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and some other Dems. The article is titled Stockard on the Stump. That's Sam Stockard, who's a reporter here in Tennessee. And then he writes, a rift is taking over House Democrats despite minority status. Rep Shaw, other Dems could face primary foe for voting in favor of the restrictive House rules. So just to give a little bit of backstory here for the people that aren't maybe following intensely closely. Obviously, everybody knows about the Justins, knows they were expelled, reinstated, and now we have our first session going on since they were reinstated. And already the very first week, Justin Jones was silenced by Republicans when he called Speaker Sexton drunk with power. And as if to prove his point immediately, they voted to silence him, to cut him off, leading to headlines like this: Tennessee lawmaker cut short after accusing House Speaker of being drunk with power, which, let's be honest, nobody who's following the Tennessee House in any kind of close way thinks that that's a false statement, that the Speaker Sexton is drunk with power. He is, of course, drunk with power. There just aren't many people willing to say it out loud. And now Sexton has adjusted the rules so that the minute you say anything like that, you can be cut off. So yes, that's drunk with power. He also took Justin off of an education committee that he was on, which important because Governor Lee's main priority is this voucher program that's going to have to run through those committees. So yes, Sexton is drunk with power. Of course he is. And these rules have made it easier for a speaker drunk with power to silence Justin. Now, why is this article focused on Democrats and not on Sexton? Well, the reason is because one of the Democrats, Representative Johnny Shaw, voted in favor of these House rules. Every single Democrat voted against the new House rules, which limit the length of time you can speak, make it easier to cut the Justins off. There's also these, what people are calling these Willy Wonka tickets that Speaker Sexton is using to keep people out of the balcony. Half of the balcony is now a ticketed zone reserved mainly for lobbyists. So Speaker Sexton, the lesson he learned from expelling the Justins and having them sent back is he's got to be even more draconian, even more authoritarian. And that's what we're going to see this session. Johnny Shaw, in this article, said to the Lookout, according to Sam Stockard, that he isn't totally okay with the rules, but contends the quote-unquote confusion that's erupted in the House since Jones and Pearson took office has, quote, hindered many Democrats from expressing themselves and, quote, getting things done for their districts. And that's what made me want to jump on here today because, Johnny Shaw's a nice guy. I've known him a long time. But what happened during that special session showed this entire country and the world, frankly, how authoritarian and draconian things can be here in Tennessee under Speaker Sexton and Governor Lee and this Tennessee House Republican supermajority. And that was extremely important for people to see that. And the only reason they saw that was because Pearson and Jones with Gloria Johnson stood up, went to the well, and took one on the chin, not knowing what was going to happen, but showing the world what was going on in Tennessee by the backlash that came next, by the response that happened. And that was a really important thing. So for Johnny Shaw to call that confusion because they've now further tried to crack down on the Justins and say that it has hindered Democrats from expressing themselves. Well, I've been following this legislature as closely as anybody for 5 years, and there's a lot of Democrats that had a lot of chances to express themselves that have not taken it. And the Justins have not stopped anybody from expressing themselves. They have just stood up and expressed themselves as they were sent there to do. So I think Johnny is quite misguided by leveling these accusations at the Justins. And then the other thing that I take issue with is this getting things done for their districts thing. Now, I may be wrong, but as you're commenting along here, I challenge everything and everybody. Give me one bill that the Democrats have passed since, let's say, 2020 or 2019. I would be hard pressed to come up with one, and nobody follows this closer than I do. There may be some, symbolic bills of naming stuff, and, there may be some coloring around the edges going on here or there. But as far as meaty, serious bills that move the needle for the people, that stuff gets dismissed as socialism by this House GOP supermajority and gets blocked. Red flag laws blocked, raising the minimum wage blocked, paid leave blocked. So blocking them from getting things done for their districts. What are y'all getting done, Johnny? Is what I would ask. And I think it's important to push back against this idea that what the Justins are doing are somehow a distraction from the work. What they're doing is the work. And for them not to have the support of everybody in their caucus, I think is a disappointment. And I don't think it's just Johnny. I think Johnny's the one that voted that way and kind of is now becoming the face of this discussion because, now you got Sam Stockard writing about the rift, but to me, this takes the focus off where the pressure needs to be, which is on Speaker Sexton and an out of control authoritarian House Republican supermajority that called what happened last special session an insurrection. It was not. It was peaceful. I was there. And it was important. And I don't think anybody would say who cares about progressive causes or democratic causes would say that what happened last session wasn't maybe the most important thing that's happened on behalf of the Democrats and exposing Speaker Sexton for who he is in a really long time. So then Shaw goes on to say he's willing to bend to get a little harmony. Again, what is harmony? What does that look like? Does that look like just playing along with an out of control supermajority? They're probably laughing when they hear that because they're not bending at all. They don't bend. Goes on to describe the laws or the rules, saying it gives lawmakers 2 strikes for being out of order or going off topic, which is another issue because off topic is totally at the discretion of Speaker Sexton. And Leader Camper offered a rule this session saying, well, you have to explain why someone's off topic if you call them off topic. And of course, Republicans said no. Sexton does not have to explain himself. He does not have to justify himself. Absolutely not. They voted that down. So Sexton could just say, off topic, bang the gavel. They all vote to silence Justin and they move on. And this is what Johnny voted for. And by Johnny voting for it, now Republicans can say, well, it was the rules were voted on in a bipartisan manner because one Democrat voted for it. And it gives them cover. So it's damaging to do that. They limit how long they can talk about things. And then Shaw points out it is obvious the rules are designed to keep Jones and Pearson under wraps, but says the duo won't talk to him how to progress. And then he says when this all began, they wanted to be expelled. And I think all of us were working hard to try to keep them from being expelled. Now, again, I take issue with that. I know the Justins, they didn't want to be expelled. They wanted to do what was right. And if they were expelled, so be it. And perpetuating this narrative that they wanted to be expelled is damaging. And it helps the people, the detractors of the Justins. I see you guys are commenting. Please keep commenting. Karen Reynolds, friend of mine who's running for Senate, says, we have no voice. The Justins brought it forward. She says, off topic means I don't agree. Ryan says, you hit the nail on the head. They are not fighters. They don't fight for shit. Jessica talks about how anybody is scared of anything socialist because we've been indoctrinated. So again, these talking points being thrown by Johnny Shaw to Sam Stockard, I think are helpful to all the wrong people. And to say that they wanted to be expelled, that's simply not true. They did not want to be expelled. They wanted to do what was right. And they were willing to lose their seats. And I think, frankly, they're to be commended for that. And it's important to remember that right when they did it, their caucus was telling them get off the floor. They were trying to quiet them, for whatever reasons. Maybe they were worried they were going to lose their seats. Maybe they didn't want them rocking the boat, whatever it is. But at the time, they didn't have the full support of the caucus. And, this is more of an example of someone in their caucus still not fully supporting what they were doing, even though I think if you polled Democrats in Tennessee, they would have the vast majority of the support in the state for what they're doing, standing up to what happens in the House. And I think people want to see more of that, not less. And so that's why I think that this vote by Johnny Shaw is so unfortunate. He goes on to say he further believes Jones and Pearson like the cameras. Okay, which look, do they like the cameras? I think they see the cameras as a useful weapon and maybe their only weapon in terms of pushing for progress. Sure, they're not shy. They're both good on camera. Absolutely. And then he says, when you're on camera, you need to be getting something done other than causing a lot of confusion. And again, I take serious issue with the idea that all these two guys are doing are causing a lot of confusion. They are causing a lot of friction because they're pushing back against an authoritarian regime. But I don't think they're causing confusion. In fact, I think they're clarifying a lot for a lot of people. I think they're clarifying what's going on in our state for a lot of people. And frankly, I think the one who's confused about what's happening here would be Johnny Shaw, who seems to think if he just goes along to get along with these Republicans, that he's going to get stuff done. And I would be hard pressed to come up with a single bill that Johnny has passed of substance since I've been watching. And I challenge anybody to bring forward somebody who has been watching this legislature closer than I have since 2019. And again, this isn't personal. I like Johnny Shaw. I've known him a long time. I ran for Congress. Bolivar was in my district. Johnny was very supportive of me. I appreciate it. But I'm not going to sit here and not say anything about this when I see this kind of pushback against what, in my eyes, is the best thing Democrats have going for them in Tennessee. And then he says, black lawmakers, this is now Stockard saying, black lawmakers have worked for years to move the legislature in a different direction. And Shaw says, you don't get up and trash people every time you stand up and expect to get something done. Now, trashing people is a very strong thing to say there. And, if calling a drunk with power speaker drunk with power is trashing people. Well, we just have a different definition of that. But I don't think Jones is trashing people. I think he is speaking the truth. Sexton is drunk with power. I know Republicans that believe that, a lot of them actually. And he doesn't name call. They trash him a lot too. I don't hear Johnny talking about that. And I'm tired of the both sidesing of civility and name calling when one party is silencing the other, has all the power, will not pass any bills that the other one wants, is standing in the way of a lot of majority supported bills in our state, using voice votes to silence people, gerrymandering this state to hell. And we're going to sit here and talk about civility by the Justins and trashing people. I just think we're totally missing it. And if you want to talk about creating confusion, this is creating confusion, not what the Justins are doing. And so Shaw then says, is he concerned about facing a primary opponent this year? He says, I'm a man of faith who believes if you do what's right, right will follow you. And if he loses, so be it. And then he both sides is it and says, all I can say is the chaos needs to stop on both sides, but it takes both sides to stop the chaos. Well, again, I don't see anybody on the Republican side trying to stop the chaos. I think all they're trying to do is crack down further on the Justins who are speaking up for what's right. Patty says, how is speaking truth trashing? Exactly. Karen says both sides coming from Republican is gaslighting. Yes, it is, but it's also gaslighting coming from Democrats. And Johnny's not the only one that has said that. And we've called it out when others have said it too. As far as Johnny getting a primary, I know the district pretty well. Johnny is, I think, popular in his district. So, it might be tough for a primary there, but generally speaking, I do believe that that's something that may need to happen. If there are Democrats who are not willing to push back and stand up to what's going on here, maybe they do need primaries. And so then Sam called Justin Pearson, who said he has respect for Shaw, not only because of experience as a Black lawmaker, but as a Black American in this country over the course of his lifetime, uh, and the legalized subjugation of Black people. So he's being deferential to Johnny's age, which absolutely Johnny's been around a long time, well-respected man, a pastor, I believe. And again, nothing personal here, but he did say that he disagrees with Shaw and other members who feel silence and patience will improve efforts on issues such as gun violence, helping the poor, standing up for areas which the state has failed to invest. He used words such as docile and acquiescence to describe, it says, lawmakers such as Shaw. And this is Justin saying basically what I'm saying here, which is, where has playing nice gotten them? What have they passed? We are at the bottom in poverty, at the bottom in infant maternal mortality, at the bottom in per pupil spending. We have the most anti-LGBTQ bills in the country. We're at number one in medical bankruptcies, the highest percentage of disenfranchised Black voters in the entire country. So yes, I think Justin makes a good point here. Where has this gotten us? And he says, I'm not serving in the General Assembly to be silent or be silenced, because that is thwarting the democratic principles and ideals associated with the First Amendment and a representative democracy. And he says that at least two provisions of the new House rules eliminate debate and votes. At the same time, Republicans say more debate is needed. Then he says he's looking for candidates statewide who align with the vision of a more just Tennessee. I do not believe interested in stopping gun violence and working for the poor. I don't believe people who are silent are going to continue being of service to the people of their districts, because the people in their communities do not want the status quo to continue. Now, you're in our comments here. Please, by all means, if you think he's wrong about that, comment and tell me if you think he's wrong. I have a feeling you think he's right. I personally believe he is right on the money with everything he is saying there. And again, Johnny says they're causing confusion. No, that's clarifying. That's clarity. What Johnny Shaw is doing by voting for rules we all know are wrong and draconian and authoritarian, that is creating confusion. So I think we need to push back on this stuff and call it out And that's what made me want to hop on here and talk about this. Now, it says Shaw isn't the only one to face a primary opponent. Joe Towns, a Memphis Democrat, was recorded as abstaining, even though he was absent that day. And he says a lot of rules are becoming more extreme. He argues it's getting tougher for the Democrats. And then he says it's going to backfire eventually because you can't continue to suppress the public. You create a volcanic eruption. And then Sam Stockard wonders if Towns is going to get a primary. So I just wanted to come on here, see what you guys thought about this. It made me want to talk about it. It's unfortunate that there are fissures in the Democratic caucus when obviously they're dealing so much from the Republican side of things, but there it is. And when Johnny put his name on it in black and white and voted for these rules, he sort of invited this conversation. And Sam Stockard is frankly right to write about it and call attention to it. Again, I think what the justices are doing is essential. It's important that we have people in there standing up and calling things out. And this is what happened when Justin Jones did that in the first week of session. They were talking about the rules, and he called him drunk with power, and they silenced him.
And the Republican Majority Leader, my friend William Lambert, were trying to get on the elevator, and the Speaker's security put his hand up to Lambert and said, "You can't get on with the Speaker." He pushed our Majority Republican Leader and said, "You cannot get on with the Speaker." And so I want to make clear that these rules are not about Democrats versus Republicans, but it's about each of us as members and a Speaker who is drunk with power. In these rules, a phrase that keeps
Representative
occurring.
Reagan, you're recognized. Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Please use your microphone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I asked the clerk to read from Mason's manual about disparaging comments for other members, and I herewith call the gentleman from Davidson County to order.
Representative Reagan has called for Rule 19 and called to order. That puts us on the board. We are voting. A yes allows the representative to continue speaking. A no vote calls him to order, and we move to the next person on the list.
Ayes 20, 68 nays.
Move on to the next person. Representative Hall, you're.
Okay, so what you have there is Reagan standing up and silencing Justin for calling the Speaker drunk with power. Now, drunk with power, is that a disparaging comment? I mean, you could make the case. I don't know. I would say no. I'd say he doesn't deserve to be silenced. I would say it's factual. But what you see there is the process they now have in place whereby any Republican, if they don't like what Justin is saying, can call for a vote on the board. Guess what? They're going to get the majority of the votes and they're going to be silenced. And then now they have rules that say if that happens enough times, they're going to be silenced longer and longer and longer, days, weeks at a time. And this is what Johnny Shaw just voted for. So frankly, that's, I think, unforgivable to be lending your support to something like that. And I think Democrats need to push back on the draconian authoritarian nature of what we're seeing. And to say that this is a distraction is just not the case. This is not the distraction. This is important. The distraction, I think, is, whatever insignificant bills Republicans are going to let Democrats pass over the course of the next session to act like they're playing nice. Anything significant is not passing. And so now you have headlines showing people what's happening, which, the narrative is that this Speaker is drunk with power. And those are really important because they tell the world what's going on in our state. And you've got these tickets, which now you've got an article today about how this ticketing policy is ridiculous. The Democrats called out Speaker Sexton and his Willy Wonka tickets for, what they are. And so, I think this is really what needs to keep happening, and people need to run to join this fight. You guys are agreeing, Karen, saying the Justins will help by calling attention to the draconian rules and the power grab. District 75, Burkhart and Johnson voted to silence Rep. Jones. They all did. They all did. And other people are running. Allie Phillips is running in that district. That's good. That's important. And again, I just think we need people up there calling it out, calling out the nonsense, calling out things like when House Republicans stand up and say, on MLK Day that they are somehow champions of the MLK cause. And there you've got Justin Jones calling out the hypocrisy of the message as they vote against basically everything MLK stood for. You even had Bolso writing about Martin Luther King Day as he represents a lawsuit against the Williamson County schools over books. As some of you said, Republicans will quote MLK while passing laws preventing kids in school from learning why. That's exactly right, Melanie. And if you don't believe us, take it from his daughter, Bernice, who said folks who use woke with contempt today probably would have hated daddy when he was alive. He was conscious and committed to eradicating racism, poverty, and militarism. If you're using his quotes to stop truthful teaching about him, ... And then here are some quotes we posted that you won't see on MLK Day from Republicans. I mean, the man was all for distribution of wealth to the poor. He was absolutely fighting for racial equality and naming it. And every single day on MLK Day, we see the deeply hypocritical posts coming from Republicans. And that it's just, that day has just become a day of Republican hypocrisy. And it's a shame, but it's also useful because it reminds us of how they are trying to rewrite the narrative. Patty says she's supporting Allie. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys being on here with me. I felt the need to vent a little bit about this rift that we're seeing between Democrats, which is unfortunate, but it's there. And I think it's important to name it, call it out. And I think it's important for you guys to let the Justins know that you support them. If you do, let Johnny Shaw and others who are maybe not being as supportive of them know that you're watching and that they probably should be, and to clarify things for them that they seem to be a little confused on. And we'll continue to do that. Just a couple of cleanup things here. We have Holler hats available, a good way to support us. Go on our website, tnholler.com. We have some brand new Holler hats, some colors. And then one cool thing that just happened, GLAAD just put us in their special recognition category in their awards coming up in a couple months, March 14th in New York. I don't know if that means we're invited, but I do know it means that we're in a category with Beyonce somehow. So, hey, that's one for the record books right there. The other thing to be aware of is this situation with the education commissioner, Lizette Reynolds. I asked her a very simple question last week about accountability and vouchers that she could not answer to save her life. Then she went into a committee meeting with the Senate and couldn't answer any other questions either. And so now there's starting to be a call for her resignation. John Ray Clemens points out that she doesn't meet the statutory requirements for a commissioner of education, which seems important. And also he points out that she, in that hearing, admitted that the pilot program for the vouchers, the results show that they are not working. And now we're going to expand them to the whole state, turn it into $1 billion program, drain resources from our already underfunded public schools. And I believe this week the calls for her to resign are going to come. And so I think that's something to be aware of and, join the call there, because that would be really egg on the face for Governor Lee, for his brand new education commissioner to be forced to resign right as he's trying to pass this voucher scam that's going to hurt public schools. I think that would be egg on his face in a big way. And from what I can tell, she is in over her head. Patty says, thanks for all you provide for us in Tennessee. Thank you guys. We're nothing without you guys. We're nothing without your support. It's working for the wealthy, says Chris and Cakes. That's about the vouchers. And then Beth Tanner says she didn't seem to know what accountability means. That's right. And the reason that's so ridiculous is because their whole excuse for passing these vouchers is that, public schools are failing. They're not. And we need accountability and better achievement for our students. Well, if your whole plan is to send them to schools that you're not even going to measure achievement and accountability, then that kind of exposes your plan as not about the kids, but it is about greed. And the answer that results weren't anything to write home about, but parents are happy was not confident. It wasn't confident, and it's also inconsistent because, if all that matters is the parents are happy, why are we testing? Why are we forcing the third grade retention law on TCAP? Why aren't we just letting parents decide if kids advance or stay behind? No, it's about steering money to private schools, and every excuse they have blows up upon the slightest touch. And so we need to keep pushing back. I've heard there are Republicans who are not in favor of this. This is not a foregone conclusion, and everybody needs to be reaching out to the legislators, A, about vouchers, and B, about this idea that what the Justins are doing are a distraction. It is not. What the Justins are doing is essential. And I wish that every Democrat would see that and get behind them. Thanks for following. We'll see you next time.